is happening, you guys? Welcome back to Let's Go Win podcast, where we're here to help you win from within. And today I have an awesome guest. I swear you're going to feel like we absolutely go back as brothers. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, he's brilliant because he says things and I'm like, yes, we are so in alignment. And no, in all seriousness, he is just an awesome guy, and there's so much goodness that comes from it, especially when it comes to really identity shifts, rewiring your past. These are major things that people are confronted with and typically don't have the skills. And our guest is absolutely going to help with that. Mitchell Osmond is a trusted advisor, leadership consultant, and host of the Dad Nation podcast. With 15 plus years in senior leadership, Mitchell helps high-performing individuals reclaim their home, health, and happiness while enhancing their career success. Through executive coaching, speaking, and leveraging his online influence, he equips people to lead their families with and see as much success personally as they have seen professionally. He's on a mission to help leaders build lasting legacies by thriving in every area of life. Well, Mitchell, brother, it's so good to see you this morning on my end. I think actually you're even earlier than I am. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. You're right. It is. It's 7:30 a.m. So I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Dude, it's my pleasure. And you are out in Alberta, you not? Is that correct?
Yeah. And for the Americans listening, that's right above Montana. So that's where I'm at.
And my audience knows that's where I'm originally from. I'm from Great Falls. So I am just like, yeah. So are you in Calgary area? Is that correct?
Yeah. Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I spent a lot of time out there. Soccer, basketball, all sorts of fun stuff. But anyway, brother, let me start with, you have the Dad Nation podcast, which I love. I love what you're doing. But you know what I'd like to know is what got you to where you are now? Like when you look back and you're like, all right, this is how I arrived. What's kind of that like elevator pitch, if you will? How did you get here? And then we'll dive into the kind of the good, the bad, the ugly that you've gone through. But love to know just how did you arrive at doing this cool podcast, doing what you do today?
Oh, that's a great question, and I'll try to say it succinctly. But and that's the great facade of Instagram and social media. You see people, and it's like, well, they just always had it figured out. Well, for me, that was not the case at all. So there, people often ask me, what was your turning point? Because there was certainly a turning point where my life was falling apart. And so there are really two for me, so the first one was a big fight. And it started, like if anyone's listening, they're married, we were sitting on the couch and in the living room, and it just hit the fan. We'd been married for 3 years, and we hit rock bottom. And it started, a fight started about, I think it was money or something. And then it ended up spiraling and getting worse and worse. And, in that moment, as we sat on the living room couch, I thought for the first moment, I don't think that I can fix this. I think this might be the last fight. And I was a fixer. And we were only 3 years in, but I felt deep down that this one was different. This fight was different. That I knew that if I didn't change something, this might be over, And to give you some context, I was recently let go of a senior leadership position. My career was everything. It was my calling, my identity. I was wrapped up into it. And so I spiraled into depression. I was like 50 pounds overweight. We were in debt to the tune of like $100,000. I was medicating with drugs and alcohol, just trying to cope with just wanting to escape from the life that I had created. Dangerously close to divorce. Like I said, we were basically one fight away from it. Losing kind of any shred of any hope that I had left. And, as they say, I was checked out, stressed out, burned out, and I had seen success professionally, but, when it comes to growing organizations and leadership and building teams, but I just couldn't figure out my life personally, and I would ask myself, why is it you're so powerful at work, but powerless at home? Maybe your listeners have been there, right? And to spin that back even more is a lot of this came from my upbringing, because I had wounds that I didn't repair that started to bleed out into my marriage. I came from a dysfunctional home. I had a non-existent relationship with my father. alcoholism, drugs, crime was littered throughout my family growing up. And I was sort of caught in the middle of it all. And so I knew where I came from, right? And I knew that I wanted something different for my life and my family, but I could feel myself getting pulled back into repeating those same mistakes. And when I'd snap and I'd lose my cool at my wife, I could hear my father's words. I could hear his tone, and I hated it, but I didn't know, like, I knew that I was destined to break this generational curse that I was living, but I didn't know how to do it. I wanted to have an amazing marriage, but that was never modeled for me. I wanted to have a healthy body and to be strong, but no one showed me that, right? All I knew was how to numb, how to, with booze, weed, food, devices, because that was modeled for me. You know what I mean? And so,
Got that one.
yep, check. And so business and leadership made sense. But, when I got home, I could never quite fit the puzzle pieces together. And it's like I get home and I didn't even know how to talk to my own wife. And it all sort of spiraled, man. And that was the thing. And maybe some of your listeners who are listening today, they might feel that sort of same, man, the board meetings I get, running budgets, running teams, I get that, but at home it's a different story. And so, the second turning point was really about 2 weeks after that. Okay. So we had a fight. We're still working through it. I was asked to sing at this funeral. The funeral was the turning point. And at the time, being a pastor in a big church, there was a big funeral going on. And this man was a wealthy, philanthropic man. It was like a couple thousand people showed up to his funeral. And, the pastor at the time, he was wrapping up what he was sharing about the man. And he had asked a question. And he said, "Are you living a life worthy of imitation? Are you living a life worth imitating? If you were to die tomorrow, would you be proud of the legacy that you left?" And I was strapping on my guitar, getting ready to sing that last song, and I could barely choke out the lyrics because I was convinced, man, if I walked out of this church and got pummeled by a bus, no one would say he inspired me to have an amazing marriage. No one would say he inspired me to get into great shape or to really hone in my health, wealth, and happiness. You know what they would say probably is that he struggled and then it was over. And it was sad, man. And the thing is at this funeral, people told stories about this man, stories that were filled with great chapters of a life well lived. And that's what people do at funerals, right? They tell stories because that's all they have left. But by the time I packed up and was ready to leave that funeral, I had made up my mind that I was going to rewrite my story. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so in my life up to that point, one chapter was my childhood, and that was really sad. Another chapter was my marriage up to that point, which was a chapter of struggle. So I began to take ownership and say, you know what, if I'm going to create this life for my wife and my children, I have to take ownership and really break this generational curse and start writing new stories. And so I did an audit, man, of every aspect of my life, my marriage, my fitness, my mindset, all those different things, my emotions, because I know, and you know this, if we want different results, we have to learn to make different decisions. If we want to get somewhere different, we've got to do things differently. We've got to elevate the way we think. And so that's kind of what I started to do. So I surrounded myself with 5 men who I looked around my personal circle and I said, who are the people that, like, my ceiling is their floor? Who are the people who are living where I want to get to? And I'm just going to reach out to them and ask them for mentorship. And in all those different areas, in my marriage, in my fitness, in my finances, and in my emotional life, I said, who's in the best shape that I know? Who's got the most money that I know? Who's got the best marriage that I know? And who's the most confident that I know? And who's the most even keeled, emotionally just regulated? So within 1.5 years, 18 months, we paid off $100,000 of debt. We completely restored our marriage. I dropped 50 pounds and built, my dream body, if you will. But best of all, man, I was clean of substances and distractions and I had a clear, focused mind. And I realized, man, and when I got there, I realized that I had it all backwards. This whole time, my whole life, I thought all I needed was the success and the money and the business. But I realized that I could have all the health and the wealth and the influence in the world. But if I was sitting around the Christmas tree alone this year, then what would be the point? You know what I mean? And I realized that being a high performance leader in business meant nothing if I wasn't a high performer at home as well. And so I had it all backwards. And so this process has helped me sort of understand and really major on the majors. And essentially that's what I started to do. And people around me started asking questions like, what are you doing, man? How did you lose that weight? How are you and Sam doing so well? How did you get out of debt? And I just started helping my friends for free. Because I knew, I have tasted and seen of how good that could be. And so then I started helping friends of mine do it, and then so on and so forth. And then I got there. But I tell people all the time, I'm like, I figured some things out because I did so many things wrong. So I can tell you all the things not to do. Right? Does that make sense? That's a bit about me.
Oh, brother, you and I literally were going through hell at almost the exact same time. And here's what I love is like you actually looked in the mirror and said, or the song as you're singing. So clearly you must be a pretty talented musician, which is awesome.
Mm.
But for that to hit you to be like, you know what, I need to own this. It's not on anyone else. It's on me. And I like how you went out and I think you said 5. I wrote down marriage, fitness, finances, and then I was so focused on hearing what you had to say. But really to reach out to each one of these mentors and say, gosh, I really want to get to where you're at. And your floor is my ceiling. Such power. I guess one of my questions would be, how was it with, because I've been in that point, and my wife and I were actually separated at that time that you're going through, as you're going through this identity shift. Did you guys stay together throughout that? And how was she? Was she supportive of what you're doing? Was she like, oh man, Mitchell, great, but I've seen this rodeo before? What did that look like, brother? And I ask that because I think so often great intentions can get squashed by the surrounding loved ones because they have seen it before. They've heard this story before, but why is this going to be different? What was it like for you, brother? Was there any part of that made sense? I don't know your exact story, but I know for me, I had to go prove it. I had to literally separate so my wife could see, no, I'm dead serious. I need to get better so we have a future.
Yeah. Exactly. It was, would you trust me? Do you have enough love in your heart to trust me for another 6 months? You know, give me 6 months to prove to you, because I know I've said the sky is falling. You know, or I know, it was the boy who cried wolf. I know I've been there. I've said this, and I said I was going to do this, and for 6 months, could you hold on and watch me, trust me, and then and that's, she gave me that time, and then I had 6 months, and so people say, how did you do it so fast? Year and a half or whatever. I'm like, well, I didn't really have a choice. I got a ticket, for 6 months, and and so for me, that was honestly her grace, and just being willing to walk alongside me and not walk away, and it was powerful because even going through that, we're still fighting. We would still fight through it, but that was the thing. We were fighting through it, right? We had a mindset of like, it's probably not going to get easier before it's probably going to get worse before it gets easier, right? Because I got to battle demons. I gotta basically dismantle my entire childhood, the trauma, you know what I mean, and work through this. But those mentors that I had, and I call it the W5 framework, which we can get into a little bit later if you want, but those mentors in my life at the time said, hey, this is not going to be easy. So don't expect it to be. Don't be disappointed when you still fight. And 3 months in, 90 days in, when I got that ego back, or that, I got a couple wins under my belt, and I started thinking, oh, you're good, man. You're good. We're good. You don't have to keep leaning into mentorship. You're fine. They had said, no, you're not. You think you're good? No, you're not. And held me accountable, and held me to the standard that I had told them that I wanted to set for myself. And they wouldn't let me let it slide. And they had the wisdom and the love and the raw sort of accountability, the courage to say, you're not there yet, man. And so surrounding myself with people who could keep me humble and keep me honest, because we lie to ourselves all the time, and that was really what kind of an honest, loyal wife who really believed in me and my pleading for permission to, or for her to just, give me the chance. And then getting serious about getting those men around me and putting systems and structures in my life. Because, you're probably familiar with this quote from James Clear, and this has been, regurgitated and reformed from other people, but you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, or you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to you fall to the level of your habits. I didn't have systems, man. I didn't have a net, and when I fell way, way down, and so what I did was essentially create nets so that if I fell, I just stumbled a little bit and I got back up. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what it looked like for me in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into the framework. I do. One of the things that it's so interesting, the universe is funny, man. Like God's up there laughing a little bit. And here's why. This word identity shift has been coming up the last 3 days. I mean, brother, I'm telling you, like 3, 4, 5 different conversations. And I love how there's no one way ticket to do this. That's what I love about this. And here's what I mean by that. To anybody listening right now, and if you're going through a struggle and you're like, dude, I can't see my way out of it. What Mitchell's saying is he's been there, right? I'm saying the same thing. I've been there. And the crappy part is you're going to look back that moment where you're with your guitar and you're saying, that was not a fun moment for Mitchell, guys. That sucked. That was like not a good time. And yet it's the profound moment that he's so grateful for. And I guess what my point is when you're going through this struggle, if you can see just what the lesson's trying to teach you. And what I found fascinating about you, brother, as you're talking, so the dad wasn't a great relationship, wasn't the model. And when you reached out to mentors, you went specifically to men to say, I didn't get this modeled for me. Can you help? Will you guide me and hold me accountable? Because it's not all fun and games. And that's the one thing that I think, turns people off. It's like, but I love what your mentor said. Like, dude, this is going to suck a little bit. But when you think you're good, you're not there yet. And I think there's so much wisdom in that. What are your thoughts on, and we'll get to the framework. I do want to hear it. But what are your thoughts of getting quiet as you have these identity shifts? Have you seen that be impactful in your life? Because for me, one of the greatest gifts I gave myself was 3 days alone with a tent, a gallon of water, and nothing else. Just my thoughts and having to be in that. That sucked and was so profound for me. Have you done anything similar to that, Mitchell, in your journey?
Yeah, man, I did a 3-day silent retreat. It was wild, dude. Well, here's the thing, man, is you cannot get away. You cannot escape. You can't numb. You can't drown it. You're faced with it. And that's why getting silent and getting away is so, so critical. Because what do? We either lie to ourselves, or we deny ourselves of the story of what's going on, and we just drown ourselves, right? And so the world is so noisy. And so you don't feel good about yourself? That's fine. Just get on Instagram and scroll until you fall asleep. You don't feel good? Have a few drinks. You don't feel good? Look at porn. Do whatever you want to do to get your fix, and then push it off until tomorrow. But the problem is when you wake up tomorrow, the same problem is still there. Now you just got another day of broken promises, another day of identity misalignment, and now you feel even worse today, right? And so the silence, I think what's key about it is you can't, it's almost like we're all sort of in rehab when we're going on these silent retreats or spending time in nature or whatever, because we're getting away from the really substances, if you will, whatever your substance, whatever your vice is. And you're denying yourself the ability to drown out the pain, right? To drown out the problems. And because that's just what we do. And so for me, yeah, the silent retreat was huge because there was no one there to talk to. It was like a retreat area, and they would serve you food, but no one was talking. Nobody was engaging that way. You would just come and sit and eat and go back and reflect. I mean, it was right outside the Rocky Mountains. That's where I live. And so it was gorgeous, journal, writing, walking, thinking, meditating, all those things. But yeah, huge, man, because, and I think the big thing is there's no noise and there's no escape, right? You're just faced with the narrative, the identity, the challenges that you're working through, and really kind of doing the deep work, right?
Yeah. No, I know it scares people because every time I bring it up, people are like, I can't do that. And I get it, man. Like, it's not fun. Like, some of the stuff we're talking about, yeah, it's going to suck. And it's so worth it. All right, brother, let's talk about this framework. It's something obviously that you shifted your entire life, both from a health perspective, finances, your marriage, so relationships. I mean, the big core three. What's the five? What am I missing here?
Yeah, so it depends, on the five. Well, I tell you what, we'll get there. But the framework itself is really based on the sort of, I call it the mindset matrix, which is really just a 3-dimensional look at your life, right? So the first one is redefining your past, right? And the idea is that your past doesn't define you; it can refine you if you let it. And so a lot of people don't realize you're driving the bus. You're in control. You get to decide what your past means. Your past doesn't dictate what your life should look like today. You get to look back to your past and say, I know what trajectory that set me on, but I will choose something different, right? And so when we talk about rewriting our story, the first part of that story is in the beginning, right? We go back to the beginning. And so I lead people through something called the origin audit, which is really just an audit of your origins, right? It's pretty simple. But you ask yourself, because we all have these limiting beliefs. One of mine was, you're not smart, because growing up, my sisters, 2 older sisters, were always great in school. I was terrible in school. And so they said, well, you're just going to be like your dad, right? You're not really going to do anything. Your sisters were the smart ones. And so for years, as I got older, I was convinced I was dumb. In fact, it took me years to even launch the podcast and the coaching practice because I was convinced nobody would want to listen to me because I had nothing valuable to share. And so for me, the 5 questions, we ask is, what's one core memory from your childhood, right, that still carries your emotional weight? Or like, what lie are you believing from your past? For me, it was, well, you're not smart, and it could be anything. And you could use this in any area of your life. Second question is, what did that belief form? What mindset did I form from that? Like I said, for me, that was, well, the lie in the beginning was, you're not smart. The belief that I formed was, I'm not smart, as a result of being what I was told. Then the third question is, how is that belief still showing up today in your life? For me, it was like, well, I still think that I struggle with intellect, right? And it affected me by stopping me from doing anything great that I wanted to do. It stopped me from pursuing my dreams, right? The fourth one is, then you question that narrative. Is this belief true? Because if you don't question that narrative, it will just continue to play, rent free in your head, right? And so no, that's actually not true, because wait a minute, I've been in leadership positions for at least 15 years. I've run organizations, managed budgets, built teams. Well, no, I'm obviously not dumb, right? I must know some things. Is that belief true? No. So you discredit that lie. The fifth question is, well, what is? Well, what is more true than that lie? Okay, well, the what's more true is that maybe I am smart. Maybe I do have something to give. Maybe I do have value to add, right? And then you sort of live out of that statement. So that's like understanding the past, right? Or as I phrased it, redefining your past, speaking back to your past, and declaring sort of that the fact that it doesn't have control over you is not going to dictate the rest of your life. A lot of people think it's the backwards. It's like your past leads to your present, which leads to your future. Which I would say, no, we actually get clear about our future, and then we reverse engineer that and design steps to take today and continue to speak to our past as we move forward. You understand what I mean? We're getting a little bit meta here. But the second one is to rewire your present, right? So we talk a lot, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but the reticular activating system, which is really just the brain's filtering system, and understanding that your brain can change what it sees and what it thinks is possible. And you can actually through neuroplasticity, and your brain is malleable and you can change the way you think. And it's an amazing thing. And so you don't have to stay stuck where you are in the present, right? You can take ownership of your past, and in the present, you can actually rewire your mind to think differently, to see different opportunities that were otherwise invisible. So that's we get into that. But then the second piece is what I was talking about, the W5 framework, the alignment of, actually, no, that's another framework. This one is what I get clients to do every day, and it's just focusing on the W5s, making deposits in these 5 areas. Okay, if your listeners want something practical and tactical to do tomorrow, this single framework, if you will, has changed everything for me. And this is exactly what I did. So number one is so it's 5 by 5, right? So I do deposits into these 5 areas 5 times a week. Number one, my why. So make a deposit into your key relationship. Could be your wife, could be your kids, anything. And it doesn't have to be everybody, just one. It could be a best friend. And it could be a text message to your wife. Hey, sorry I missed you this morning. I love you. You're an incredible wife. Thank you so much for what you do. Or it could be a sticky note on your kid's lunchbox. It could be a text message to a friend. Or it could be anything like, hey, I just appreciate our friendship so much. Number one, you're focusing on your why, right? Number two, the word. Okay. So this is like engaging your mind, taking in wisdom every single day. And I'm like, don't commit to reading 3 chapters or 10 chapters, or don't be religious about it. Just read until you receive inspiration from a book, any book, and then journal about it, right? So word. Third one's white space. And this gets to the silence that we're talking about. Creating space to meditate, to dream, to visualize the man, the person, the leader you're becoming. Because, spoiler alert, the subconscious mind doesn't understand the difference between a memory of what has happened and a visualization of what has not yet happened, which I know you're nodding, so you're like, yes. And so when we take this white space to dream and visualize, our brain is engaged with that reticular activating system, remember, is like preparing a way for us to step into that. The fourth one is workout. Now, the reason why working out is so critical is it's so much bigger than just being fit. You're building, you're casting votes to who the person you want to become are. You're challenging yourself daily. Remember, I said it's going to suck? Yeah, embrace the suck. And it actually teaches you how to build confidence, because you make a promise that morning and you keep it. You make a promise and you keep it, and you do something really hard in the beginning of the day that sets you up for psychological wins day after day. So work out. Number 5 is work hard. Now, this is important for everybody, but especially the men. We all need a mission, okay? We all need a purpose. We need to feel like we're a part of something bigger. And we need to build to be fulfilled at the end of the day. And so to create something, to be able to put our heads on the pillow at night and put in a good, honest day's work and be like, man, I went all in today. And that peace of mind. So being on a mission is so important. So why, word, white space, work out, and work hard. If you just did those things, and that can all be done outside of work hard, those things are all just really healthy parts of your life. 5 times a week, those 5 things, that will keep you in alignment and help you major on the majors, right? So that's the present piece. And the last thing I'll get into is just real quick is reclaiming the future, which is that third part. It's looking forward, okay? And at the end of the day, really, to save some time here, there's some things that we do like, but I'm a big fan of Napoleon Hill, and he'll say begin with the end in mind, right? Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, chapter 2 is called Begin with the End in Mind. It's a whole thing of reverse engineering your future to become the man that you want to be, or the person you want to be. And so I walk clients through a eulogy exercise, beginning with the end. Think about the death. Think about your mortality. And you get real visceral about who you want to become today. And so I have people just legitimately write their eulogy as if though their wife or their husband was writing that story. And then here's another question for your listeners who might really appreciate this. It's called the best 3 years exercise. Have you ever heard about this before?
No.
Okay. So this is a visualization exercise that can help us really look into the future and determine who we want to become. So the question is if we were to meet up 3 years from now, okay, maybe we're in an airport, coffee shop, whatever, and I asked you how you've been, and you said to me, Mitch, this has been the best 3 years of my life. What would you be telling me about to make them the best 3 years of your life? And so what I want you to do, if you're listening to this, is ask yourself that question. And then I want you to brain dump everything that comes in your mind, right? What would have to be true in the next 3 years to make the next 3 years the best 3 years of my life? And you think about it in all those different areas, right? Your career, your time, your finances, your relationships, your health, and your spirituality, you name it. You create that picture, create that scene. Like we all have our favorite movies, in that final scene when they're walking into the sunset. That is that in 3 years from now, this is where I want to go to work. This is where I want to be driving. This is where my kids are going to school. This is the house I'm living in, you name it. When you have a real clear picture of that, then we just start reverse engineering steps from that vision into strategies, and take those strategies into daily action steps. And that's what I call the legacy ladders, but we can get into that another time. So anyways, that's the idea, man.
Well, so I promise you guys, I've never met Mitchell before today. We have so many similarities, brother. I love the mindset matrix. Mine is just slightly different, but it's the same. It's that's why I'm laughing while you're doing it. I'm like, it's so freaking good. So I'm patting myself on the back as I'm patting yours. Gosh, where do I want to take this? You mentioned a couple things. You mentioned James Clear. You mentioned doing hard things in the morning. And one of the things so immediately I'm like, all right, cool. Let's talk like practical. Mitchell wakes up and I can hear the kiddos in the background, which I actually love. That makes me happy because you have this podcast called Dad Nation Podcast. Literally, the only thing I ever wanted to be was a dad, right? That was my dream, and I fulfilled that. I love being a dad. But we'll get to the kids in a second. We'll get to your podcast. But I am curious, when you say do something hard in the morning, what does that look like for you, man? Is it the same thing every morning? Are you just seeking something out? What does it look like? Because I say I believe in it too, right? And some days it's cold plunge, some days it's the sauna, some days it's crazy workout. When you say that, brother, are you looking for something specific, or it's just I'm going to go tackle something really challenging to set my day right? Just because I have it in my head. I want people to understand what you're saying, because I think there's a ton of value in that small statement alone.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think I'll say what I do cautiously, because we all love boxes and we all love to put ourselves in boxes. And this is part of the reason is you're looking at everyone else and what are you doing? What, you're doing that? Okay, I'll do that. Oh, you're doing that? I'll do that too. And then we get overwhelmed and we quit. Right. And so what I would say is, so what do? I work out, I train first thing in the morning. And because it sets me up for, like I said, if I know I'm gonna do this PR in my squat or whatever, and I'm like this is physically the most challenging thing I'm gonna do. Number one, I know that any call I can take or any meeting I can take after that throughout the day is gonna be easy if I can do this, right? Number one. And then two, psychologically, it sets me up because I said yes. I said yes to myself. I said yes to my promise, and I kept it, right? And so what is the hard thing for you? I don't know. Listeners, you need, maybe you love training. I don't. I hate it. But that's why I do it, because it's hard for me. So what is the hard thing that you need to face? Because it's not necessarily about what it is. It's about the fact that it's difficult. And that's because of something called, again, I'm a bit of a brain geek, but the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Right? Have you ever heard of this before?
Yes. I swear to God, dude, we're related. It's just cracking me up because I am a neuroscience brain dork. I just love it. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no. And it's just neurologists have discovered that this part of the brain structure actually grows when you do difficult things, specifically things you do not want to do. And so what they've discovered is, and this is enlarged in high performing athletes and people who have overcome trauma, a lot of different things. And so what they've discovered is that the key to the willpower and to having more of it is simply to continue doing hard things. And so for me, it's like, yeah, that's what we need to do. And so I don't know what the hard thing is for you, but for me, and here's why, is when we talk about self-confidence, you know this too, I'm sure. It's breaking promises with yourself. That's what causes an erosion of self-confidence. Looking at, if I told you this morning, brother Jay, I'm going to show up at 7:30 and for this podcast, and I didn't show up, I said, oh, I'm sorry, man. I'll show up 7:30 tomorrow. And I didn't show up. And then I didn't show up and I didn't show up. What would happen? You lose confidence in this relationship. What do we do with ourselves? We break promises constantly. So we lose rapport with ourselves and we start saying things like, well, why would anyone else trust me if I can't even trust myself? That when I set an alarm, I'm not going to get up. When I say I'm going to the gym, I'm not going to do it. And then that sets us up and gives us permission to say no to yourself for the rest of the day. And so the first test is, will I say yes today to this hard thing that I'm doing to start off my day? Because that way I'm starting off my day priming myself to say yes to everything else, and I'm keeping a promise, which helps instill self-confidence. So
so good.
That's what I would say.
No, dude, it's so good that exactly what you just said. I love the example you gave. Like, and I was late to our podcast this morning. I was scrambling, calling him like, dude, my system shut down, because that's 100% for me. Like, I want to always be accountable, do what I say I'm going to do.
That's it.
And I love what you said as well. Like, look, I don't know what it is for you. And my example here, guys, because it will shift and change and there's no right or wrong to it. I live in Florida, as my listeners know, and it's summertime. It's pretty humid out. Every morning when I walk the dog, I put on my 60-pound weight vest with the dog, and I hate it, dude. Like, it sucks. It's brutal. It's sweaty. It's hot. My neighbors think I'm crazy, and then they actually verbally tell me why are you walking with this vest? It's humid. And the point is not for any of that. The point is exactly what he's talking about. Like, I said I was going to do it, and I'm just going to show up for myself. And you've reiterated that many times, where so often we won't show up for ourselves. And that's so key. Talk to me about the Dad Nation podcast, brother. And as a dad, why was that important for you to be like, yeah, man, we need to talk about this. This is something that's really my passion, because I think it's really cool. I've never listened to the show, but I'm like, yep, I'm in. That sounds really cool. So why the Dad Nation podcast? What was the impetus? What was why did you need to do that?
Okay. Why is because I'm a very slow learner. I'm a very slow learner. I learn everything the hardest way possible. And I knew that any chance I had of ending this generational curse that I was raised with, any chance that I had to give my son the childhood that I didn't have, was to surround myself with men who were trying to do the same thing, to study voraciously, to learn concepts and teach principles, because the best way to learn something is to teach it. And so the only shot I have, because I have an addictive personality, because I come from a family of addicts, and so I have to be very, very vigilant about what I do with my time and energy. So what did I do? I just made my singular focus one thing. And I'm like, I'm going to get around men. I'm going to help men. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to study it so that I have a decent shot at being the best man, father, and husband that I can be. And that's actually why I started it. And the great irony of this is it's all because of selfish motives, man, because I just want to be the best that I can be. But at the end of the day, again, going back to the funeral, if I want to live a life worthy of imitation, well, what is that for me? For me is to help other men end those generational curses for them, help other men become the man, husband, and fathers that they said that they would be, to fulfill the promises that when they promised their wife or their partner or their kids, when they said, I'm going to give you the world, I'm going to help them try their best to do that, to follow through, to show up. And so that's why I started it, man, was because I just suck at learning lessons the easy way. And so, and I say that in vulnerability, but also to give your listeners permission to be like, it's okay to don't have it all figured out. And if this guy can do it, who came from this and is stubborn and is whatever, then surely I can too. So that's kind of why I started it.
That's cool. I will tell you that. How old is your son now?
He's just under 2 years.
Here's what's going to be so cool for you. And I know you already know this, but what you're already going to be teaching him, how much more evolved he will be. This is what I blush about it, because I think my oldest has been meditating since he was 13 years old. Right?
I love that.
I didn't discover it until really I was 20, right? Where that was when I didn't really adopt it until my early 30s. And now it's just, and I don't, if you meditate, you don't, I'm just a huge fan of it. But my point is how much more evolved your boy is going to be than what you were. And I think that's our job as parents, right? Is we want our next generation to have a better everything. That doesn't mean you give it to them, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that's kind of our hope and desire. I want to say a word to you because in your processes, especially talking about the past, this is a big word that I think people sometimes struggle with. I'm just going to say it and then I'm going to let you go. Forgiveness.
Thank you.
So thank you is that's where you land on that. How was it for you? Because when you go back into this past, when you have to deal with the demons, as you talked about, when you have that very addictive personality, there's some forgiveness that has to take place, guys. And this is a very serious subject, but I want people to hear it. What did that look like for you, brother, in your journey as you had to forgive yourself? Maybe it was your parents,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it was whatever generational trauma that you had. What did that look like for you, and how were you able to actually arrive at a place of forgiveness? So maybe you're still in that process. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But this is surrender and forgiveness are the two for me that like big words for me and ones that I continue to spend time on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's huge. And I think at the end of the day, it's if you choose not to forgive, you're continuing to give that power to other people. The people that you've unforgiven, right? Or that you're not forgiving. It's like what is that saying? Unforgiveness is like swallowing poison and hoping the other person dies. Unforgiveness. And so for me, it's like, if for nothing else, to be able to be able to take the power back, forgive people, right? But ultimately, it'll be freeing for you as well. And I think the thing we fail to understand is we think that we're changing. I'm like, well, I'm a different person than when I made that mistake. So I'm giving myself grace. Well, so is that person, because we're changing constantly in every way. Even you today, JM, and myself, what have we go? We've been gone for 40 minutes now. We're different people than we were 40 minutes ago. And we're going to start making different decisions because we have new information. On a cellular level, we are different. And so what happens, though, is we continue to hold people's hurts and their mistakes against them, even though they're not that person anymore, right? And just as though I'm not the same person, and Lord knows I've made a ton of mistakes in my life, and I want everyone to know that I'm different, but I know that people are still, unfortunately, going to paint me in that old picture. And so for me, forgiveness was understanding that, you know what, for my parents, they made the best decisions they could with the information they had, and they tried their best. And yeah, life sucked, and yeah, they made mistakes. And my dad was battling his own demons too. And he didn't have a good dad, and his dad didn't have a good dad, and his dad didn't have a good dad. And so what chance did he have? Now I could choose to continue to give him the power and have him have control and power over me and my emotions and to hold me down, or I could actually forgive him and release him of that and say, you know what, that was tough. And I can't imagine how hard it must be to have a life that's so painful that you need to be drunk 90% of the time. And that's got to be really tough. And I'm sorry. And I'm sorry that you probably live with shame and guilt because of your kids who don't really know you. And that's got to be super painful. But you know what? I forgive you and I release you from that, because that's the only way I can live. And if I want to move forward and help my son experience this kind of love, then I have to model it, because I'm his blueprint. And if I'm carrying unforgiveness in my heart, and if I'm not transforming my pain, I will transmit it to him and therefore not end this curse. Right. And so for me, that's the reasons why I need to forgive.
Well, guys, I never give out homework. I'm giving out homework today. I want you to really search deep and just think. It might be yourself, by the way. think of anybody that you're holding on to. Take your power back. I think that's so, you're not forgiving for them, you're forgiving for you. And everything that Mitchell talked about today, if you can start in that place, you build off so much of these frameworks that he talked about, then start making these deposits at your why, your word, your white space, your workout, and your work hard. It's like, that's all power. So let's go get our power back. And we all have people. I'm telling you right now, I do this work on a daily and I still have people to forgive. So guys, that's the homework I'm going to have. Now, I can't believe how fast this went. I've been chuckling throughout because I swear to God, I feel like I'm talking to a brother. If people just want to reach you, man, they're like, dude, I like this Mitchell guy. He's fun. He has some cool stuff that he's talking about. Where is the best place to reach you, man? And just to make sure, because I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. And I just want to say, man, this has been a blast. I feel the same way. I don't know where the time went. So I do 3 different things, man: content, courses, and coaching. And so any of those things, like my content is the podcast, the Dad Nation podcast. And of course, the courses I'm working on one right now called the High Performance Husband, which has these 3 major frameworks that I teach. I teach high-performing men how to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness, which is really just their relationships, their fitness, and their mindset. And then the third one is coaching. So I do one-to-one, I do group coaching. But if you just search Dad Nation, Dad Nation podcast, Dad Nation coaching, whatever, you'll find me. And my big platform is Instagram. I currently just hate Facebook and LinkedIn and everything else. And like I said, I can only do one good thing at a time. And so that's where you'll find me hanging out.
Well, brother, it's any guys listening or ladies.
Yes.
If your guy needs a little extra love here, have him reach out. I mean, you just hear how easily he breaks it down. He's like, I do 3 C's. I do content, courses, and coaching. I was like, God, that's good. He's so clear on it. But in all seriousness, Mitchell, you're awesome, brother. I appreciate you being here and just showing up so authentically. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, man. I really hope that I've added value in some way to you and your following. And I just want to say, Jam, I love what you're doing as well. The Let's Go Win podcast is powerful. And obviously I'm biased, but I think we just need more of your message, your vision. So any way that I can help add value to you in your organization, then please help me. Please let me know. I'm happy to be here today. Thank you for having me on the show, brother.
Guys, he has no idea what he just asked for. Yes. Appreciate you. Wow. So let's just look at it real quick. The mindset matrix, the 5 questions that he went through, the core memory from childhood. Where did that belief form? How is that showing up today? Is that true? And is this true? And if not, what is more true? I thought, again, very similar to how I do it. The 3 questions that I ask when you're looking at these beliefs: is that true? Why I believe that, and how's that showing up in my life? And then when we got to forgiveness, and when he talked about taking back your power, you're not forgiving for them, you're forgiving for you. And I just, throughout the entire episode, I was chuckling because so much of what he said resonates with me in my journey. And so much of the coaching that he's doing, that he's found successful with himself and his clients, was the same for me. So I just absolutely loved this episode. I hope you did as well. I would love to hear from you guys. What did you get from it? What did you really enjoy about it? So do me a favor, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and share this with people that you love and care about, because there's so much goodness in this. And until next time, you guys, remember, you are absolutely deserving of everything you wish and desire. I appreciate y'all. We'll talk soon.